Hello, I'd like to welcome you guys to another edition of Kobra's Corner, and this week we're going to take a look at another NCAA 13 tips breakdown. In this one, we're actually going to take a look at a play called I-form normal corner strike, and this particular play is very effective against man and zone coverage, and the reason for that is the route that's ran by the flanker who's lined up out here on the right as you look at your screen. You're going to notice he runs a backward C route, and that particular route, what makes it very effective is this. When he winds up going to the inside in this area here, then he winds up breaking up the field, and then he winds up cutting towards the corner. And that's the reason we call this a backward C route, is because it looks like a backward C. And we're going to go ahead and show you how we like to run it against man coverage and a zone coverage defense. And speaking of that man coverage defense, the one that we're going to run it against happens to be called 4-3 stack, two-man under, which is a pretty common defense that a lot of players like to run. So let's go ahead and take a look at it when we're going to run this play. And what we're going to wind up doing with this one is to go ahead and beat bump and run man coverage, is to use a little motion. But before we do that, let's go ahead and hot route the tight end on a streak route, and you can see we're doing that right there on your screen as you look at it. And here's the tight end. And the reason that we want to do this is we're trying to draw this strong safety back. So you'll notice that this strong safety, as we said before, he initially is playing his deep coverage here onto the right. Now, if we don't do this with the tight end, sometimes he'll wind up coming over in this area here and possibly maybe in position maybe to knock the pass down or even possibly pick it off. But by putting that tight end on a streak route or a seam route down the right hash mark there, he'll wind up going back into this area here, at least in this area, and he'll be further away from the flanker once he breaks his route towards the corner. And we can also use the total control passing that's new to the game this year. Now, I know this has been in the years past, but this is a little bit better edition of it. And what you're going to wind up doing when you make that throw to the flanker, you're going to wind up throwing it hard right once he breaks towards the corner. And the other thing I pointed out earlier, we want to go ahead and use motion. So what we're going to wind up doing here is we're going to take control of the flanker. We're going to motion him inside just a couple yards, and then we're going to snap the ball. And the idea behind that is to get him off the line of scrimmage without being jammed. So let's go ahead and do that, and then we'll go ahead and snap the ball. So let's go ahead and send him in motion, and we'll snap it. You can see right there he doesn't get jammed. And once he breaks to the outside, you just go ahead and make that throw, and you can see that we wind up completing it. Let's go ahead and look at it from the top-down view and just kind of look at it a little bit more in depth. And you kind of see how this play works out. The way that we're trying to set this up is that we pointed out earlier with the tight end. We're going to go ahead and send him on that streak. And the idea that, as we mentioned earlier, is to go ahead and get that strong safety, at least to try to commit towards the inside a little bit more. And then the idea of that would be once we send this flanker in motion, of course he's not going to get jammed because we send him in motion, then he's going to wind up coming up the field on a C route or backward C route and break towards the corner. And then that's going to allow him to get open once he breaks towards the corner because the defender that's covering him will actually wind up being behind him. So let's go ahead and take a look at it again and kind of see as we go through this in kind of a slow motion. Right there we snap the ball, and he doesn't get jammed at all. Then once he goes up the field, now one of the things in years past, a lot of things one of the guys would do is they would look to go ahead and maybe possibly throw this ball a little bit earlier before he actually breaks towards the corner. So in this area here, what they might wind up doing is throwing the ball into this area here as he's breaking up on his slant portion of his route, because basically he's kind of running a slant a little bit towards the inside. And then sometimes he might be open where you can make that throw right there. But as is, we're just going to go ahead and wait till he breaks towards the corner. And once we see him, then we want to go ahead and use that pass lead, and we want to throw it towards the right. If you think your controller being a clock, you want to try to throw it about the 3 o'clock position, and that way you're throwing it hard right. And that way the ball is going to wind up being led over in this area here. And then that's going to allow this receiver to go ahead and make that catch in this area here. And that's what you're going to wind up seeing as you look at your screen there. And you can see that he does get open and he winds up making a catch, and we wind up getting it. Let's rewind it just a little bit and about here, because I want to talk about this tight end as far as that route that he's running. And you can kind of see how he winds up kind of drawing that guy back just a little bit. Not a whole lot there, but a little bit. And then let's go ahead and make that throw over towards the flanker. So you can kind of see how that's going to work out, what we're trying to do. All right, let's go ahead and run this against a cover 3 defense out of the 4-3 stack. And the reason I wanted to show this is because it also works against some of the zone defenses, in particular cover 3 coverage, but you can mess around with it against cover 2 and probably have some success with it as well. Also against cover 1, you can run against cover 1 coverage and even cover 0 coverage if you have time to go ahead and make that throw. Let's go ahead and do the same thing as far as the hot route with the tight end. We're wanting to do the same thing as we did earlier. We're going to go ahead and put him in motion here, and then we're just going to look for him once he breaks towards the corner and make that throw there. And we wind up making the catch just as he's going out of bounds. So you kind of see how this play would be pretty nice as far as beating zone and man coverage. The fact that it doesn't really matter if it's man or zone. You can pretty much key on him being open as long as you make that throw correctly. Now you got to watch out for buzz zone defenders because they might wind up buzzing back into that area there and taking away this throw. but generally you can see that it's going to wind up being open right there. He makes a nice catch and actually winds up catching in bounds, and then we wind up picking up a nice gain. So again, this play is called I-4 normal, corner strike. Pretty nice play to go ahead and run against both man and zone coverage. If you hadn't had a chance to check this one out, it's an old school play that a lot of players have liked to run, in particular the route combination that I'm showing here, which happens to be the seam route ran by the tight end and the backward C route that's ran by the flanker. That's pretty much a common combination that we've ran over a lot of years, that I've ran over and many other players have as well, that's been allowed them to go ahead and attack both man and zone coverage.